Hello, this is Danny Hill, EFT NLP coach. If you'd like to lead a happy, peaceful, and really good life, live it as if you're a dying man or woman. Stamatis Moraitis, I believe that's the correct pronunciation of saying it, was a man who was from an island called Ikaria, one of the Greek islands. And he became a painter and decorator and moved to America. And at the age of around mid-50s, developed terminal lung cancer. And he was told by doctors there that he had about 9 months left to live. It was very expensive to die in America at that time, so he said. So he decided he would go home, back to Ikaria, because it was cheaper. But when he went back home, the sun, the wine that he drank as well, perhaps the exercise that he took by everywhere's either up or down in Ikaria, the unpolluted environment that he lived in regarding the mind as well as the body enabled him to live beyond 9 months. He lived to well over 100 years old, and that was a man who was meant to die. He actually went and attempted to find the doctors who the doctor who had told him that he'd got terminal lung cancer, and that doctor had died. So he wasn't able to tell them, and isn't it just an amazing story? Now, what lessons can we learn? Now, we could all go and move to Ikaria. Yes, okay, we could do that. But the lessons that we could learn were, he went back and just got more present. He got into the now. He just drank wine. He enjoyed life. He just, I know from my own father. My own father had terminal lung cancer and did live 9 months. After his diagnosis, he went into the hospital to get the diagnosis and came out in a wheelchair. He wasn't told he was terminally ill. It was said that the tumour was wrapped around his heart and they couldn't operate. They couldn't cut the tumour out, but they could give it radiotherapy. He went through all different types of things, but the positive things that I saw in him were, as an Enneagram type 8, he went to holy innocence. He really came out of that controlling part of himself where he really just went into this place of surrender. How could he fight it? He couldn't. All he could do was trust the doctors and to live each day in the now and to experience as much of life in the best possible way that he'd got left. And that's what I saw. Now, I've said this in many videos before, but for someone who really idolized my father when I grew up, even though he was quite brutish, particularly in the 80s, he certainly mellowed a lot more. But I loved him, and I still love him, and I still miss him to this day. But, it really was one of the greatest inheritances that he left, because I got that time with him where he really taught me how to live. Now, he taught me how to live whilst he was dying. That is, that all of the stuff, the majority of stuff that goes on in the world is totally unimportant. Now, he died Christmas Eve 2001. And this year will be the exact halfway point, because he was 30 years older than me. So I'll be 15 years older. I was 27 when he died and he was 57. So I will be 42 around, I'm 42 already, but around Christmas time when he died will be the halfway point. So I'm halfway to already, and it seems like yesterday that happened. It's just incredible. But he just lived very presently and accepted what was happening to him and wasn't bothered really by what was happening. It was just an isness, really. Yes, there was pain, and that was painful. But the emotional pain, he surrendered really to it. He didn't allow it the great deal of energy that it, would take up with somebody else who was suffering. It was in 2001, I remember, on September the 11th, and of course it was all the way over the news, and I remember talking to him about this. I said, "What do you think about it?" And he really just said, "I'm not interested," and turned it off. And, well, I could understand totally why. he really knew he'd only got really months left to live, why would he want to spend any time being angry towards the terrorists, being angry towards, now a lot of the people are angry towards the government? You know, if you get into the psychology of someone who's dying, and let's face it, we are all terminally ill. There's not a single one of us who's going to be here in 100 years' time, more than likely. So why waste any time? Why immerse yourself in anything? Allow yourself to be informed, don't be inundated, and don't give it any energy. You know, I'll have friends who talk about regrets, or I'll have other people who will talk about, you know, what's happening, you know, towards the government and all the rest of it. Just doesn't bother me. And I sometimes wonder why, you know, why am I so different? What's happened? And it's because I'm living much more like my father did. I am really living life as much as I can where what's happening and just letting go. Because life becomes so much easier and there's so much more happiness. There's so much what people miss when they're thinking about things that they have got no control over. I mean, you know, my father, what was he going to do in that moment? What, get really angry because that had happened? Get really sad? It happened in another part of the world. Now, I don't for a minute think that he didn't have any compassion. But what could he do in that moment that was going to change what was happening there? Nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The best thing that he could do was to create the best day that he could, and then be there for his family in the best way that he could also. Those are really profound, blessed, and important lessons to learn.